Hey, what's up out there? Yesterday I got some pretty terrible news. You may have already heard about it, but a good friend and I don't know, there's a lot I'm going to say about him, but my buddy Brad McQuaid, the guy who created EverQuest, died overnight. I don't know the exact details yet, but totally unexpected. He passed away in the middle of the night, and I'd just seen the guy Friday. Like I said, we're good friends. I talk to him all the time. I'd seen him Friday. He's actually getting ready to go over there next Friday, in just a couple days. Maybe when this comes out, if I decide to actually release it publicly. Anyway, I wanted to just talk about it a little bit. Partially just to share, I guess, some of the impact that he's had on myself and other people, and also just to kind of, I guess, get it off my chest. And for me, it's a whole lot easier to do this into a camera or onto a piece of paper than talking to actual people. Tend to get nervous and tense talking to people, but talking to a little camera like that is super simple, and it actually makes this a whole lot easier to, I think, get my words out and get my thoughts out about it. So I just wanted to talk about, like I said, the how I met him. I want to talk about the impact that he's had on my life and career, and a lot of other people that I know, probably tens of thousands of people. And I also want to talk just briefly about, I think one of the biggest and most important lessons that I got from just being friends with the guy, right, and knowing him. So, I guess I'm gonna get started with just how I met Brad. So if you've never heard of Brad before, he's the guy who was kind of the leading driving force behind creating EverQuest, which is a game that I started playing as a teenager. It came out when I was a teenager. I got in, a friend got me into a beta, and we played nonstop for years. I mean, when I say years, I mean years. We were playing from like, I don't know what age it was, like 16 or 15, all the way until we were in our 20s, and playing obsessively, like a ton. I mean, there's lots of 12 to 16-hour days playing. And if you played it, you could see how much time you'd spent in the game. And my time in game was measured in the thousands of days. I played a lot on multiple characters, and so did a lot of my friends. And really, it's a place where I met a lot of my friends. So a lot of the guys that I still talk to now, I mean, half the people that message me on Facebook are friends that I met playing EverQuest and just kept in contact with. And some of the best long-term friendships I've had have been through games like EverQuest, and EverQuest is really the biggest one. It also kind of brought together a lot of our local friend group, so we would get together and just go play at a friend's house. We'd all hook up when somebody finally got cable. We all went over there to play so we could play with high-speed connections. We'd go to my friend's LAN or ISP, his dad's ISP, and we'd set up LAN parties there just to play EverQuest, and we'd sit there in group and play, for the entire weekend straight. And this was kind of a big impact on me because, like I said, it was a lot of my time, but it also drove me to want to make games. It kind of pushed me into the idea that, hey, I want to make video games one day. I kind of thought about it before, but EverQuest was really the driving factor there. It was the thing that kind of pushed me over the edge and made me start kind of learning a bit more about games. And it was actually another one of Brad's companies, the one right after he left working on EverQuest, which actually stumbled on this shirt when I was looking in the closet this morning. I thought, hey, I should just wear that because it just reminds me. But it was Sigil right here. This was the first game company that I got hired to work at. It was a company that Brad had started making Vanguard after he'd made EverQuest, branched off, and went off to make another game. He wanted to build another new world and started this Vanguard project in Sigil. And I got hired onto there, and it was kind of my first real dive into AAA game development. And the weird part about it was, like, at the time, I'd never met Brad. I'd heard about him. He was kind of like a legend that I knew about. I knew he was like this great game designer who kind of led the whole thing, or at least drove the entire project, and he's kind of the reason it existed. But I'd never met him. Even when I worked at Sigil, I didn't meet him at all because by the time I got in there, he'd already left the company. They were going through getting sold to Sony, and there's a whole bunch of internal stuff that I still don't really know all the details about. But all I know is he was not at the company at the time. He was at home doing his own stuff. And when I met him, it was because I hanging out with other guys that I worked with, mostly junior developers like myself, and we're talking about Magic the Gathering, which is a card game that you've probably seen me talk about it a little bit before. I got cards all over, like my office is littered with cards, everything that's not in the backdrop, right? Um, so I had played the game before. I knew a little bit about it. I wasn't great at it, and I hadn't played in a long time. But people were talking about it, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that sounds fun. I'd love to play with you guys and just catch up and all." They're like, "Hey, well, we're gonna go to Brad's house and play Magic," and I was like, "Okay, whatever." I didn't realize they were talking about Brad. And then they explained. I was like, "Oh, whoa!" Started feeling a little bit overwhelmed at the idea of like, "Hey, I'm gonna go to the guy who started all this stuff's house to go play cards, and I'm gonna go get my butt kicked because I haven't played in a long time." But I grabbed my crappy little goblin deck that I still had. I wasn't able to find much, but I had a little goblin deck with lots of crappy goblins and goblin grenades. And we went over there, and I mean, I gotta say, I was really blown away when we got there. The place is amazing. You can imagine Brad's house is really nice. Um, but also just going in there and meeting him is the one of the nicest guys I'd ever met. I was really surprised. He just kind of welcomed us all in. He's introducing himself and just having a nice friendly chat with a bunch of mostly a lot of developers he'd never met and some that he kind of loosely knew from the project. He just knew that everybody there liked games and wanted to play some cards and have fun, and he was more than willing to just let everybody come in and do that. So we played. I remember getting pretty excited when I got to kill Brad the first time in the game, using these crappy goblin grenades to take him out, and I was like, "How did I beat a guy who's like a gaming legend?" Really, it was just mostly luck and the fact that he was a lot better at video games than card games. But it was a blast. I mean, I had a good time with that, and at the end of it, he invited everybody back, and it actually just kind of turned into a weekly thing. So for the last, God, I don't know, it's been like 10 plus years. We've been going over there almost every Friday night, as many Friday nights as we can, and just playing with a group of guys. Or just go play Magic and have fun, chat, play these fun group games, and just spend the entire night just hanging out and talking about game development or whatever other things were going on in the world. It was a lot of fun. I mean, it was a big part of my life and a lot of other people's. And again, just a second. Anyway, one of the things that I noticed though while we are doing this is that throughout the years there were constantly new people that Brad would just kind of find and bring in. So he'd go out to a comic book store or any other random place, or he'd get a message from somebody who happened to be local and talk to him, and suddenly we had a new player in our Friday Night Magic games. They'd show up and have new kind of lifelong friends that we just hung out and had a blast with. And a lot of these people ended up getting brought into different projects too. We'd end up working on projects together, working on games together, working on little stuff, or playing games together outside of just Magic. Anyway, I don't want to go on too much about just me hanging out with him and how much fun it was and the stuff I'm gonna miss there. I wanted to talk also a bit about kind of how I saw Brad living his life, which was really taking advantage of it and not wasting it, right? Like he spent a lot of his time and energy just doing the things that he loved and helping other people do the stuff that they wanted to do. He didn't just sit around and think about like, hey, one day I want to make this game. He's like, hey, I want to make a game, and he would go around and find the people who thought the same thing and wanted to work with him on it and go make the damn game. He didn't just sit around and have wild thoughts and ideas. He actually just took action. When he saw things he wanted to do, he did it. Which is funny because I saw a Reddit post right below one about Brad just a little while ago, and it said, "Good things come to those who wait," and "wait" was crossed out, and underneath it says "work for it," which I think is kind of exactly how I saw Brad live. Right, he worked his ass off to get the things that he wanted and to help the people that he knew and loved get the things that he wanted. Um, and I think that's a good lesson for everybody to not just sit around and waste your time and waste your life. Not just sit there thinking, hey, one day I'm gonna go do this thing. One day I'm gonna, for him, make a game that the game that I really want to love, or whatever it is, go have kids or get married or go travel to some other country or some place or build something or become a doctor. I don't know, whatever it is. Like I feel like with Brad and his mindset is gonna do it, and I think that the rest of us need to just kind of take that lesson and do the same, and just remember that like you never know when you're gonna be dead or other people are gonna be dead. So you just gotta get off your ass and do stuff and do the things that you want to do now. Don't wait around. Yeah, don't. Yeah, just don't wait around for things to happen. Get out there and do stuff. If you don't like the way that your life is going, you don't like something that's happening there, just change it. Like, don't sit around and hope that things will get better. Just take action. Be less afraid. Just get out there and also be nice to people while you're doing it. Uh, I think that's all I got for now. I'm kind of running out of it, and um, I need to stop. But that was really the biggest part that I wanted to get across was just remember to go out there and just. All right, I had to take a little pause there. There was one other thing that I think is important to get out there too, and that's that. Just remember with your friends, right? When your friends want to hang out, just go hang out with them. Don't think like, hey, maybe later, maybe one day, maybe next week or maybe next month, or I'll go hang out with them. I'll talk to them next year, or your parents or your kids or anybody else, right? Just take advantage of the time that you have, and don't skip out on them to go watch Game of Thrones or some stupid crap. Like, go enjoy the people around you and spend the time with them while you can. And again, also just kind of grab life and take control of it and do the things that are going to make you happy. Live life to the fullest, and I think that's a good enough end. Bye.